Good evening. Today we will be covering December second week banking and finance awareness news. Moving to the first news. The first news is about the bi-monthly monetary policy meeting that has been conducted by the Reserve Bank of India. So this, if you see, it is the 58th overall MPC meeting, and for this financial year, if you see, it is the 5th bi-monthly policy meeting. Okay, we know that monetary policy meeting, if you see, it occurs once in 2 months. So if you see, for a year, it almost occurs for 6 times in a year. So who are the members of this monetary policy committee? It is very, very important. Okay, because this has been conducted almost 6 times a year. So you must know the MPC members. If it has been added, any new member has been added or any old member has been removed, everything you should know. So who are the members? Sanjay Malhotra, the governor of RBI, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, Saugatha Bhattacharya, Professor Ram Singh, Dr. Poonam Gupta and Indranan Bhattacharya. Okay, so there are totally 6 names. Remember the 6 names, very, very important. So what happened in this MPC meeting? So after a long time, they have reduced the repo rate. Okay, they have reduced the repo rate by 25 basis points. So what is the repo rate now? The repo rate now is 5.25%. The reverse repo rate is fixed, that is 3.35%. SDF and MSF also have been reduced. Why? Because if you see the repo rate in this LAF corridor, LAF means Liquidity Adjustment Facility corridor. In this, if you see, this is the repo rate. Okay, it is in the middle. Here SDF is there, Standing Deposit Facility, and here MSF, Marginal Standing Facility. The SDF, if you see, it is always 25 basis point lesser than the repo rate. And MSF, it is always 25 basis point higher than the repo rate. You have to know the connection between the SDF and repo rate and MSF and repo rate. Okay, so when the repo rate reduces, the SDF and the MSF will automatically reduce. Similarly, if the repo rate is increased, so will the SDF and the MSF. Okay, know the connection between these two. So here, if you see, the latest SDF is 5% and MSF is 5.5%. Cash reserve ratio is 3%. Statutory liquidity ratio is 18% and bank rate is 5.5%. The bank rate and the MSF both will be the same. Okay, so MSF is 5.5, bank rate is also 5.5. Okay, now why have they reduced the repo rate? It is because the MPC saw that the inflation has reduced. Okay, the inflation has reduced tremendously, and so the real income has increased. The real income in the people's hand has increased. What does this mean? See, say suppose you are earning, this is just for an example I am telling, okay, you are earning 10,000 this month. Okay, next month there is an increment offered to you. So say suppose there is 10% increment. So it is 11,000. Okay, say suppose next month there has been an inflation of 9%. Fine. So 10% is the increment, but 9% is the inflation. So what is the real income? Real income, if you see, that is there in your hand, is just 100 rupees. Suppose if the inflation was 5%, instead of 9%, the inflation was 5%, then the real increment would have been 500 rupees. Instead of 100, the real income would have been 500 rupees. Because inflation eats your money, right? Because inflation, if you see, whatever products that you are buying this month, if next month is 9% more, then your increment will be used to buy the same products only. You are buying the same products but using your increment. Okay, so that is why here, if you see, when the inflation reduces, the real income, the real money in the people's hand also increases, and that is why the consumption will also increase, and that is why the GDP will also increase. Okay, so the main reason to reduce the repo rate is the inflation. Inflation is expected to reduce and is also reduced in the previous quarter also. GDP. So GDP, if you see financial year 26, the GDP growth is good, that is 7.3%. The GDP growth registered in Q2. Okay, in the quarter 2 financial year 26 was 8.2%. Quarter 3, if you see, 7%. Quarter 4, 6.5%. And the next financial year, first quarter, if you see, it is 6.6%. Okay, you have to remember at least the financial year's GDP projection. That is very, very important. If it is quarter wise, it's difficult to remember. At least remember 7.3% and remember this Q2 also. That has already been recorded, that you have to know. Okay. Next is the inflation projection. So for financial 26, if you see, the inflation projection is 2%. Okay. Q3 it is 0.6%. Q4 it is 2.9%. Next is current account deficit. So current account deficit, if you see Q2 financial 26, it has recorded a current account deficit of 1.3%. Current account deficit means we are importing more than we are exporting. Our total imports are more than our total exports. Next, forex reserves, it stands at 686 billion. This is enough to cover 11 months of import. This money is enough to cover 11 months of import. And last one is RBI plans to conduct open market operations. So open market operations nothing but buying or selling of government securities. In this open market operation, if you see, RBI plans to purchase the government securities. So depending upon the liquidity condition in the market, RBI decides to buy or sell. Now what happens when the RBI buys the securities? So when the RBI buys the securities from the banks, okay, so the securities are transferred from the bank to the Reserve Bank of India. So when the RBI buys the securities, what goes to the bank? The money, right? You are buying the securities from the bank, so the money will go to the banks. When the opposite happens, that is when the RBI sells the securities to the banks, that time what happens? That time the bank gives the money to the RBI. So this is, if you see, it is a liquidity tightening situation, because the money has been transferred from the bank to the RBI. So the RBI is trying to suck the liquidity from the system. So that is called as the liquidity tightening situation. So here, if you see, the RBI decides to conduct OMO purchases of government securities of around 1 lakh crore. Okay, and also a 3-year USD INR buy-sell swap of 5 billion. So here, the purpose behind this is to inject the liquidity into the system. Since the securities are purchased, so liquidity will be infused into the system. Okay, so these are the main notable things that you have to note under the MPC meeting. Moving to the next news. Next news is about UPI. So if you see, IMF report title Growing Retail Digital Payments. Growing Retail Digital Payments. In that, it has told that UPI has been recognized as the world's largest retail fast payment system in terms of transaction value. In terms of transaction value, UPI has been recognized as the world's largest retail fast payment system. Also, supporting that report, another report that has been released by the ACI worldwide. Okay, the report title is Prime Time for Real Time 2024. Prime Time for Real Time 2024. In that, it has said that UPI accounted for about 49%, almost 50, almost half of the global real-time payment transaction. If you see, it has been done by UPI. So this has recorded around 139.3 billion transactions. So as per that report, if you see, top 5 countries, okay, that has accounted, if you see, first is India. Okay, the UPI, it has accounted for around 49%. Next, followed by Brazil, 14%. Next, Thailand, 8%. China, 6%. And South Korea, just 3%. Okay, so remember the first 5 countries. This is a report that has been released by ACI. Okay, India, Brazil, Thailand, China and South Korea. India accounts for 49% of the global real-time payment. So this and all, if you see, it might appear in the objective question or not, but this is a very good data that can be used for the descriptive writing. If you want to show how strong UPI is, you can state this data from the IMF report, from this ACI. You can state that UPI accounts for around 49% of the entire global transactions. This and all is a very trusted data. Okay, so please note down such data in some notebook. So if you see UPI developments in India, so in order to encourage people using UPI, what steps have the government taken? First is the scheme for promotion of low value BIM UPI transaction. The government of India approved 1,500 crore incentive scheme for the financial year 24-25. So what is this? So here if you see, it is mainly encouraging people to use the UPI transactions, BIM UPI transactions for lower values. Say suppose you are going to some Kirana stores and you purchase some 100 rupees worth pen. So here pay using the UPI to the merchant. This is what the scheme promotes. The scheme ensures zero MDR, merchant discount rate on the UPI transaction. See, any transaction that you do using debit card or credit card, there is something called merchant discount rate. Okay, that will be charged by the card networks. So that is totally removed here on the UPI transactions, and also it offers a 0.15% incentive for transactions up to 2000 made to small merchants. So small value transactions, what is the small value? Small value, it can be 100, 200, 300, it can vary, right? So here they have defined that small value transaction means any value of transaction up to 2000. Okay, so here an incentive of 0.15% will be offered to the merchants. So only the UPI transaction person to merchant, okay, not person to person, not person to, like if I send 100 rupees to my mother, will that be considered as a UPI transaction under this category? No, only person to merchant. So if I buy something from the shop, if I transfer that money, that will be considered or that will be eligible for under this scheme, okay. So only the UPI transaction, person to merchant transaction up to 2000 rupees for small merchants are covered under this scheme, okay. This is one thing. Next is PIDF. Payment Infrastructure Development Fund. Okay, so people are now starting to use UPI. People are now starting to use the credit cards. But there should be certain missions with the merchants, right, to accept the credit cards, like the POS mission, like the QR code for the UPI to be scanned. All this should be made available with the merchant. Okay, so demand side is proper, but supply side should also be good. So this, if you see, it is encouraging the merchants to buy the POS infrastructure, the QR codes, for which the government will provide incentive. The government meaning the RBI will provide the incentive. So the PIDF, if you see, it was introduced in January 2021, intended to subsidize the deployment of payment acceptance infrastructure in Tier 3 to Tier 6 centers with special focus on the Northeast. Okay, to encourage the people using the infrastructure, that is the encouraging the merchants. Initially, it was introduced in Tier 3 and Tier 6. Later on, it also increased to Tier 1 and Tier 2 also it got expanded. Okay, so these are the UPI developments in India. The next news is NIPL, that is NPCI's international arm, and Akleda. Akleda is nothing but a commercial bank in Cambodia. Together, they have signed an MOU to enable QR-based cross-border transaction between India and Cambodia. For this purpose, if you see, the NPI's UPI network and Akleda's KHQR ecosystem will integrate. So when will this be available? So it is expected to launch in 2026. Okay. Remember the two party names, that is NIPL and the Akleda. So NIPL MD and CEO, if you see, he is Ritesh Shukla. Okay. Ritesh Shukla is the MD and CEO of NIPL. Next is Vritti. Vritti is nothing but an entity under this Catalyst platform. Now, what is this Catalyst platform? So, this platform, if you see, it is a network of social enterprises. They come together, that is, they work together to improve the livelihoods of small farmers, rural communities, and micro entrepreneurs. Okay. So, together, they come together to work for the improvement of life of small farmers, rural communities, and micro entrepreneurs. So, under this ecosystem or under this platform, this Vritti entity works. So, Vritti, if you see, it has partnered with HSBC India, and together they have launched a product called FPO Shakti. FPO is nothing but Farmer Producer Organization. This is the full form of FPO. So, what is an FPO? FPO is a collective of farmers formed into a legal entity to enhance their bargaining power, market access, and profitability by aggregating produce and sharing resources. Say suppose there is a middleman or a trader. Okay, he goes to a farmer. He tells farmer that I want 1 kg of onion, and farmer tells the price of is 40 rupees. The trader person tells that no, I can give you only 20 rupees. If you do not sell me the onions, I will go to another farmer. Farmer, he has no choice. So he sells it for 20 rupees. Though he wanted to sell it for 40 rupees, since he has no option, he sells it for 20 rupees. If an FPO is formed, okay, and this farmer becomes a member of FPO. FPO, if you see, generally there be a size of 100 farmers and more. Okay, FPO is nothing but when 100 farmers or more together, they come together and form an entity. So now, if you see, the trader will come and ask the farmer. Now he is a part of this FPO, right? So he will tell the farmer, I'll give only for 40 rupees. If you do not want, go. And because he has no other choice, because all the farmers together, they have formed an FPO. So they have decided the price. They have decided the price, and they have told that we will sell it only for 40 rupees. Now he has no option. He has to listen to him. So they have a good bargaining capacity. That is the main reason. So when the bargaining capacity is fulfilled, the profits of the farmers also gets fulfilled. Okay. So that is the main purpose of this FPO. So now they have launched this FPO Shakti. So FPO Shakti is mainly designed to provide access, capital access to the FPOs. So initially, this partnership, that is Vritti and HSBC India together, they will support 15 early growth FPOs, and later on this number will be increased to 100. Okay, remember the two partners' name, Vritti and HSBC India together, they have launched the product called FPO Shakti. Next is about an appointment. So RBI has appointed Vikram Sahu. Okay, Vikram Sahu as the CEO of Bank of America in India. So he will succeed Kaku Nakete. Okay, he will be succeeding Kaku Nakete, who has taken on the position of chair of Bank of America. So he has taken the position of chair of Bank of America, and that is why now Vikram Sahu will be replacing him as the CEO. Next is Fino Payment Bank. It has received approval from the RBI to convert into small finance bank. Okay, so Fino Payment Bank has become the first payment bank to receive RBI's approval for conversion into small finance bank. Now, if any payment bank wants to convert themselves into a small finance bank, so what is the eligibility for it? So, eligibility criteria, if you see, the payment bank should have completed at least 5 years of operation. Okay. Next is the minimum net worth that the payment bank should have maintained is 300 crores. Next, the minimum capital adequacy ratio that the payment banks have to maintain is 15%, and then the promoters are required to hold a minimum of 40% of paid up voting equity for the first 5 years. And also the small finance bank have to open, we know that 25% branches in the unbanked rural areas. Okay, if the payment bank gets the small finance bank status, it has to open at least 25% of the overall branches in the unbanked rural centers. Okay, so these are the eligibility criteria. Remember this, very, very important. Next is Punjab National Bank has launched a premium RuPay credit card. What is it called? It is called as Luxura. Okay. So before knowing the features of Luxura, you should know one more thing, that the India women's cricket team captain Harmanpreet Kaur has been appointed as the first female brand ambassador for this Punjab National Bank. Okay. First female brand ambassador. Her name is Harmanpreet Kaur. She is the women's cricket team head. Okay, captain. Now Luxura. So Luxura credit card, if you see, so individuals aged between 21 to 70, they are eligible to avail this credit card. But wait, so there is a condition, that is salaried applicants must earn at least 2.5 lakh per month or more. And if he is a if he or she is a non-salaried applicant, then the annual income should be at least 30 lakhs. Non-salaried means like business and all. Okay, the minimum salary should be, minimum annual income should be 30 lakhs. If salary, the minimum monthly salary should be 2.5 lakhs per month. Okay, then the credit limit range, if you see, it is somewhere between 1 lakh to 5 lakhs. Joining fees is around 9,000 and annual fees is 7,500. Okay, so these are the features of Luxura credit card. Next is SEBI has launched PARVA, Past Risk and Return Verification Agency. PARVA full form is Past Risk and Return Verification Agency. Now what is this? This is to prevent misleading claims about the past performance in advertisements related to financial products by research analysts, investment advisors and stockbrokers. Sometimes what happens is that the investment advisors, they release a new product, okay, or they release the advertisements of the existing product, and they claim that this product has given a return of 100% or 150% in the last 3 years. So they put such claims. These claims may not even be true. So looking at that advertisements, people go and invest their money and end up losing their money. So this false claims should not be supported. Suppose if the product has given 50%, and if the advertisement also, if the investment advisor has told that it has given 50%, then it is fine. Okay. So whatever is the true return, that only should be displayed in the ad. But now what happens is that many investment advisors, they are giving false returns. Okay, they are telling that this product has given 75% return, but in actual, if you see, it has not even given 15% return. So to reduce such misleading claims, this agency has been launched. So how will this PARVA work? So basically, if you see, if any investment advisor wants to give SEBI registered investment advisors, if they want to give such ad of such claims of such returns of their products in any newspaper or any mode, okay, they should submit that to this PARVA. Okay, that investment advisor first should submit that to PARVA. Now this PARVA will cross check. Okay, it will cross check the stockbroker records. Okay, it will all the returns. Okay, it has filed everything. It will cross check and check whether the claim, okay, whether the return that is being claimed by this investment advisor is correct or not. With all the records it has, it will cross check and then it will know. Okay, so this has to be submitted and then it will give approval, and only then the ad should be displayed. So now if you see, if a credit rating agency wants to act as a parva, so who can act as a parva? A credit rating agency can act as a parva. So what is the eligibility criteria? So the credit rating agency should have a minimum of 15 years of experience. The minimum net worth is 100 crores, and the credit rating agency must have rated at least 250 issuers. Okay, for their debt instruments in the past. That is at least 250 issues. That is, it should have rated at least 250 companies or entities that have issued debt instruments. Okay, there are only those CRA, only those credit rating agencies can act as a parva. Okay, remember this, very, very, very important. This has been issued to take care of the customers. For customer protection, this agency has been launched by the SEBI. Next is about the merchant banker, certain changes that has been introduced by the SEBI. Okay, so what is first of all a merchant banker? A merchant banker is nothing but any person who is engaged in the business of issue management. That is regarding selling, buying or subscribing to securities. They make arrangements for that purpose. Okay, so for this they act as a manager or a consultant or advisor or a corporate advisory service. So if they provide any of this service, then they are called as a merchant banker. Okay. So now if you see, SEBI has classified the merchant bankers into two categories. First category, it must maintain a net worth of 50 crores, okay, and it can undertake all permitted activities. Second category, they must at least maintain a net worth of 10 crores and they can engage in all activities except managing equity issues on the main. Okay, except the equity issues, other activities can be taken care of. Liquid net worth. They should at least maintain 25% of their entire net worth as liquid net worth. Say suppose they are maintaining a net worth of 100 crores. Then at least 25 crores. Okay, should be maintained in the form of liquid net worth. Liquid net worth means that it can be easily transferred into cash form. Immediately it can be transferred into cash form. That is what it means. And the total obligations, okay, total obligations of that merchant banker, it should be capped at 20 times their liquid net worth. So in this case, if you see, it is 25 crores, the liquid net worth, right? So the total underwriting obligation, it should not be 20 into 25 crores, which means it should not be more than 500 crores. Okay, the obligation should not be more than 500 crores. Next, the minimum revenue. The category 1 merchant banker must have a cumulative revenue of at least 12.5 crores over the 3 preceding financial years. And category 2, if you see, at least 2.5 crores, same over 3 preceding financial years. Okay, remember 12.5, this one is 2.5. And we also discussed the net worth and the liquid net worth. You should remember all these numbers. Next is AirPay Payment Services Limited has received approval from the Reserve Bank of India to operate as a payment aggregator for cross-border transactions. Okay, it has already got approval or it is already operating as a payment aggregator online mode and payment aggregator in physical mode. Online mode means like in Amazon, Flipkart, that is in the e-commerce. You require a payment aggregator, right? So in that, it already acts as a payment aggregator in the online mode. And physical mode is when you go to the merchant shop. Okay, physically you go give the card, you do the POS transaction. There also a payment aggregator is required. So that is called as the payment aggregator physical mode. So it is already operating as a payment aggregator online mode and also in the physical mode. Now it has got approval from the Reserve Bank of India to operate in the cross-border. Okay. The entity name is AirPay Payment Services Limited. Next is Ministry of Finance has launched Your Money, Your Right campaign. Now what is this campaign? So this campaign is mainly to facilitate the settlement of unclaimed financial assets, which includes bank deposits, insurance proceeds, dividends, shares, mutual funds and also pension amounts. So whatever has been unclaimed for a longer period of time, to settle that amount, this campaign has been launched. So what is the duration of the campaign? It is for 3 months, that is from 4th October 2025 to 5th December 2025. Okay, it plans to settle around 2000 crore unclaimed assets. So this campaign is based on 3 framework, that is awareness, accessibility and also action. Next is ICICI Bank has acquired additional 2% stake in the AMC called ICICI Prudential AMC Company. Okay, additional 2% means it already has certain stake in the ICICI Prudential AMC Company. So this 2% stake has been acquired for 2,140 crores. So now what is the total stake in ICICI Prudential AMC? So if you see, after this acquisition, the ICICI Bank has around 53% stake in this AMC company. Okay. Next is State Bank of India and Bank of Baroda. Together, they have received approval from the RBI to set up IDPIC, that is Indian Digital Payment Intelligence Corporation. Indian Digital Payment Intelligence Corporation. So this is basically a fraud detection platform. Okay, so State Bank of India and Bank of Baroda together will set up this platform. The main thing is that this will aim to detect and curb fraudulent digital transactions across all public sector banks. Okay, what is the purpose behind this? Is that to detect and curb the fraudulent digital transaction across all public sector banks. Okay. So here if you see, the IDPIC will be established as a Section 8 company. So this IDPIC authorized capital is 500 crores and paid up capital is 200 crores. Authorized capital means that the maximum shares it can issue. Okay, generally I am telling authorized capital means a maximum shares a company can be issued. The company can issue. Okay, that is called as the authorized capital. Paid up capital means the shares that has been issued and the money has also been received. Okay, so whatever shares that you issue, it doesn't mean that all should be subscribed, right? Certain may not be subscribed. Certain they may not have provided the money. That is what's called as the paid up capital. That is, the shares has been provided and it has also been subscribed and the money has also been got, okay, by the company. That is called as a paid up capital. So remember the difference between authorized and paid up. Paid up, authorized means maximum shares that can be issued. Paid up is a part of, subset of authorized. Okay, authorized is the main thing. Paid up is the subset, right? Next is about GDP forecast. So Asian Development Bank, ADB, if you see, it has projected that India will grow at the rate of 7.2% in financial year 26 and 6.5% in financial year 27. Inflation projection for India is 2.6% for financial year 26 and 4.2% for financial year 27. Next is DBS Bank. This is Singapore-based bank. Okay, DBS Bank is a Singapore-based bank. It has received the award, the Global Bank of the Year 2025. The Global Bank of the Year 2025 by The Banker. The Banker is nothing but a London-based publication of Financial Times. Okay, that has given this award, Global Bank of the Year 2025, to the Singapore-based DBS Bank.